Good morning, and welcome to the All Together podcast, your Love First connection, anytime, anywhere. Today.Church is meeting this morning at Ironworks College location at 10 a.m. A full menu is available. Doors open about 9:30. And this podcast is to help you stay connected if you can't be there all together. Today.Church is anytime, anywhere, Jesus people gather, love first. Today, we not only are continuing our verse-by-verse series in the book of Titus, Living Out Your Faith, but we're also celebrating the 7th birthday of Today.Church. Our study topic for today, we're focusing on living sound doctrine from Titus 2, 1 through 10. And as we celebrate what's hard to believe, the 7th anniversary of the launch of Today.Church, began to think back of the past 7 years and all of the things that have happened and are happening. And from the outside, many would say that, we have not seen success. We've had a lot of challenges. But I began to think about what Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 11 as he's talking about his journey following Jesus and his journey in being an apostle and fulfilling the vision and mission that God had given him. And he talks about all of the difficulties that he received beatings 5 times of 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times he was beaten with a rod. He was stoned. He suffered shipwreck 3 times, spent a night and a day on the open sea. Been on many journeys and dangers from robbers, from his own countrymen, from the Gentiles, in dangers in the city, he said, in dangers in the wilderness. And just reading what he mentioned about the different struggles that he went through, I was thinking that today, sometimes we don't consider the struggles as success. And over the past 7 years, we have lost facilities, we have faced all kinds of adversity, but yet, even among the difficulty, God has been faithful, and we have seen the vision that He has given us to reach those who aren't being reached by traditional church. We have seen that accomplished over and over. And so what are we celebrating today? Well, our vision verse for today is Paul continuing that discussion about the difficulties, and then he talks about the thorn in his flesh that he had prayed to be removed, and this was God's answer to him in 2 Corinthians 12, 9 and 10. But he said to me, "My grace is enough for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. So then, I will boast most gladly about my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may reside in me. Therefore, I am content with weaknesses, with insults, with troubles, with persecutions and difficulties, for the sake of Christ. For whenever I am weak, then I am strong." You see, God's kingdom doesn't measure success by traditional standards, traditional metrics. Just as Paul found strength in his weakness, we can look back at the challenges and miracles of the past 7 years with Today.Church and celebrate God's grace at work in our journey. And we are as thankful for the valleys as we are the mountaintops. And I just keep returning to what I feel like God repeats over and over and over: just remain faithful. Now, you might ask, is there anything that I would do different over the past 7 years? Well, of course. But one thing, I think that I would focus more on the kingdom that Jesus proclaimed and how different the kingdom standards and principles are compared to the things of this world. I think I would focus more on speaking the truth in love. And believe it or not, I think that I would focus even more on disciple making, which brings us to our topic today in the book of Titus, living sound doctrine. Now, Paul opens this chapter, the 2nd chapter, by urging Titus, his apprentice in the Lord, to teach and multiply what is consistent with sound doctrine, sound teaching. We'll talk more about that in a second. And Paul emphasizes that faith must be applied out in everyday life, in everyday behavior, applying this to all groups within the church, no matter your age or position. So what is doctrine or teaching? The root word in the original language, in Greek that it was written in, implies a master-apprentice relationship. A very similar word was used for teacher as for the teaching or the doctrine. And it's not just philosophical. It's not just the right theological words to believe. It is about applying the teachings in a master-apprentice, student-pupil kind of way. Not just the right things to believe, but because of the right teaching, the right actions to take. So when you see or hear doctrine, think do-trine. It is action. It is wisdom, which is applying the good things that we are taught. So let's jump right in. Titus 2, verses 1 through 2. But as for you, communicate the behavior that goes with sound teaching. Older men are to be temperate, dignified, self-controlled, sound in faith, in love, and in endurance. Now, to reiterate, sound doctrine is more than just what we believe. It's how we live. And behavior goes with sound teaching or sound doctrine. And Paul starts here by encouraging older men as role models to embody these qualities of faith, love, self-control, dignified. Now, what does dignified mean? We think of that many times as kind of stuffy. Some translations say grave, and that sort of brings about some sort of stuffy, serious. But that's not what the word dignified means in this context. It's talking about an honorable, respectful, and truthful life. And this example that older men should set should be the standard for the rest of the church. And that standard is based on sound teaching, but it's not just the words, it's how to apply that teaching with practical living. That application should reflect Christ through everyday actions. And the standard is the standard of the kingdom that Jesus proclaimed. We are called to a higher standard, to a heavenly standard, not the standards of the world. And the teaching that is common within a church gathering, within a church family, should lead to the kind of behavior where even the older men are examples. But it doesn't stop there. This example carries forward to everyone in the church. Verse 3 and 4, older women likewise are to exhibit behavior fitting for those who are holy, not slandering, not slaves to excessive drinking, but teaching, or living even, what is good. In this way, they will train the younger women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be self-controlled, pure, fulfilling their duties at home, kind, being subject to their own husbands, so that the message of God may not be discredited. Now, Paul, in this section, addresses various groups. He starts with the older men, and then here he's talking about the older women and how that they should train and share with the younger women. And then next he's going to talk about younger men. And he's emphasizing that all have a role to play in living out the good news and teaching others through their actions. This is a model of what disciple-making, what discipleship should look like. It is a community responsibility. And those with more experience should be sharing and training those with lesser experience, but not just with a bunch of words, but also by living in the way that reflects the good teaching and the good doctrine. And self-control is a theme that is across all of these groups. Moderation, truth, respect, and that truth is defined here as not slander, not gossip, not sharing things that are questionable even. And that's the kind of lifestyle that good doctrine should lead to. And it is the kind of lifestyle that passes on from one generation to the next. And next here, Paul talks to younger men, of which Titus is one of those. Verse 6, encourage younger men likewise to be self-controlled, showing yourself to be an example of good works in every way. In your teaching, show integrity. There's this word dignity again, and a sound message that cannot be criticized, so that any opponent will be at a loss because he has nothing evil to say about us. As a young man, Paul is admonishing Titus to lead by example, modeling good works and teaching with integrity. The power of the gospel is effective when it's backed by a life that reflects its truth. And that begins with integrity and dignity, credibility. If we say that we have something different than the world, but yet our lifestyle and our words and our actions and our deeds just simply look like the way that the world does things and doesn't reflect this kind of integrity and dignity, then no one is going to believe what we say. But we are to show ourselves to be an example of good works. Jesus said this, let your light shine so that they can see your good works. And in your teaching, in your lifestyle, in everything that you do, reflect this kind of integrity. Live in such a way that our actions speak louder than words. And that's how we combat the falseness and the lies and untruth in the world, because our message can't be criticized if our life reflects that message. And then Paul goes on with an extreme example. Verse 9, slaves are to be subject to their own masters in everything, to do what is wanted and not talk back, not pilfering, but showing all good faith in order to bring credit to the teaching of God, our Savior, in everything. Now, this is pretty extreme. Slavery. Now, this is not an endorsement of slavery. And this is more kind of like indentured servanthood that he's talking about here in the culture of the day. But it's still not a good thing. It's not an endorsement of having people as slaves. But it's an example of how to respond to even wrong treatment as a Jesus follower, as part of the ecclesia, of the church, of the called out ones. Even those enforced servanthood are called to live in a way that makes the good news attractive. You see, faithful and integrity in every role is an opportunity to glorify God. And we're to glorify God no matter the circumstances, no matter the challenges, no matter whether it looks like success to the world or not, in order to bring credit to the teaching of God our Savior in everything, in every task, no matter how big or small. Every word, every action, every attitude is a chance to reflect Christ. And that is what sound doctrine, sound teaching is all about. It's not just about the information. It's not just about the big words and the theological concepts, but it is how do we live in such a way today that the good news of Jesus is spread not just by the things that we post and what we say or where we attend once a week, but in our very lives, that the message of Jesus is reflected in our integrity, in our moderation, in our self-control, in our love for one another and for our neighbors as ourselves. It's a higher standard that we're called to live by. That is the higher standard and the higher doctrine, which leads us to our command verse as we wrap up today, where Jesus said in Matthew 6:33, but above all, pursue his kingdom, God's kingdom, and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. 7 years of Today Church, 7 years of trying to pursue sound teaching, sound doctrine, Jesus-like lifestyles. What's next? Well, pursuing his kingdom and his righteousness. Jesus calls us to live out our faith in a way that others see and glorify God. And it's not about some kind of perfection, but it's about letting God's light shine through our lives. Above all, pursue his kingdom and righteousness, and everything else will take care of itself. Thank you so much for being a part of this All Together podcast, and you still have time, if you're watching this live, to join us for the birthday celebration this morning at the Ironworks College location at 10 a.m., and this podcast is to help you stay connected if you can't be there all together. And remember, follow Jesus today. Love first.